Hey, thanks for joining into our Dirty Influencers series. Jesus was not afraid to get dirty. He was willing to be in just the muck of stuff. And he loved all people. He got his hands dirty by loving people and broke the rules. And it caused there to be a lot of trolls in his life. Like they were stalking him, like trying to trip him up to see what he was doing wrong. And so in today's message, we are going to talk about that. We're going to talk about trolls. We're going to talk about how one of our own influencers here at West, Joshua Pettit, has faced trolls and the work that Josh is doing in the world by raising awareness for Alzheimer's. And it's a powerful story. I really think you're going to benefit from today's message. Here with me is probably, I would say, along with Adam, the longest West member ever. Josh and I worked together at Williamson's Chapel. Yeah. He volunteered and was all in coming on board at West. He is by far the longest staff member we've had. So tell us about yourself, Josh, and just tell us about yourself in general, your life, and then we'll dive into the topic for today.
I've been at West prior to when we were West, was part of the launch and got to serve on staff doing worship production and other various things through the years. My parents that are in their mid-80s live with me, and my mother has end-stage Alzheimer's. So we started kind of a journey of sharing their lives. Like most people I've always shared what I do on social media, and I've always included their antics. And so the latest her situation with my mother and Alzheimer's has kind of been able to draw some attention with people that are in similar situations.
Cool. I want us to come back to Betty's presence online, because Betty had a presence online long before Facebook and TikTok were popular. So I want us to talk about that a little later because of the topic today. So one of the things that Jesus dealt with in his ministry were trolls. We've read about it the last couple of weeks in the messages that we've been sharing, how the religious leaders or the scholars or whatever, they would be trying to trip him up because they didn't like the things that he was teaching. He was turning their understanding of what it meant to be a follower of God upside down. And the kingdom of God that he was ushering in, it did not look like any kingdom that they expected. They wanted a ruler that was going to come in and kick butt of the Roman Empire, and that's just not what Jesus did. He came in, he made everything be about love. And that was the kingdom of God. And the kingdom of heaven was love here and love that would be eternal and unending. And so he had these trolls. And in today's society, it just reminded me, when I was prepping for this message, it reminded me of the stuff that Josh lives through. I don't like to get on social media. We've talked about this. Yeah. Like, I could not know what's going on in your life. But I've tried to make myself log in like once every 2 to 3 days because it messes with my head. Like, why didn't people like my posts? You know, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And then I logged in and I saw a post that you had about your mom, and like the nasty comments that you had underneath. I was just shocked. I had no idea that you even had that. And so that's when I reached out and said, hey, could we do a message on trolls? For one thing, for us to learn maybe how to be kind to one another, and for another thing, to bring even more awareness to the disease that your mom suffers from, and so many others suffer from, and then just have a basic overview of like how we're called to live in such a way that we're not negative presence in people's lives, but a positive presence. Start by telling us, because this is important in your story, start by telling us like who you are, like what do you do for a living, and I want you to give the breadth of that, because it's a lot. Like, you work harder, I do believe, than anybody else I know. I've known you for at least 15 years, 13 and a half or 14 and a half here actively at West. And some of the trolls complain about your working. So I want you to tell us in detail, like, what you do.
I primarily am a web developer and computer programmer, program complex websites, solutions that aren't necessarily available outside of the box, like our Bash registration system, that type of stuff. Video production, social media, marketing, kind of all in those avenues.
And how many companies do you work for?
4 or 5 large ones, but there's lots of other smaller clients that are usually
Like
one
us.
and done type of thing. Well, there's some
We
that
are a small client.
There's some that are one and done, like I may build a website for somebody and that's it, but then there's others that I work with on an ongoing basis.
Right, right. One of the things that I've always loved about Josh, when I joke that we are a small client, we're a small client because we pay Josh like a fourth of what he could, or probably a fifth of what he would be a billable rate for a company. But because Josh loves God and Josh loves all people and Josh loves West, he has given for 13 and a half years his time at the rate that we pay all staff, and has never complained about that, has always been so generous. And so in the time that I've known Josh, I mean, 1 week he'll be traveling to Vegas to work for his clients there. Another week he's like knee deep in redoing an operations system for a company here in Cornelius. I mean, he's truly one of the busiest people I've ever met. And so that comes into play when you look at some of your trolls. But tell us, before we get into that, tell us about your mom's journey with her health.
So about 10 years ago, she began to have memory issues, forgetting things, repeating stories, things like that. She had some other health concerns at the time, some cancer, lung cancer, kidney cancer. So we didn't really address the memory issues right away, although we suspected something was up. So after we dealt with lung cancer and kidney cancer and a couple of other surgeries she had along the way, hip replacement, things like that, we had her evaluated by a neurologist, and she was already mild to severe of Alzheimer's.
Wow.
So if you look back to when we first saw symptoms, we're about 10 years in on that disease.
Wait, is that a long time?
That's a long time. I've heard and read that typically 3 to 5 years after diagnosis is a lot of people with Alzheimer's die of other things. They die of pneumonia, they die of urinary tract infections or some other kind of infection. So we kind of do a good job, I think, in keeping her healthy overall.
Oh my gosh,
overall.
yeah.
So we have prolonged that, but that's an average for people. Some don't live that long and some live many, many years.
Tell us about the progression of what that has been like. Because early on, I mean, Betty used to be able to come to church,
Right.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, she had, early on it was just really repeating stories and forgetting things, not really remembering where we're going or what's going on. And she would just ask us a lot of repeated questions. That progresses into forgetting people, forgetting time and date. We noticed like one day she was cutting a pie, and the way you cut a pie is you go to circle down the center or straight down the center and cut it in, and it was just being cut in ways you would never imagine. And so their brain forgets things and scrambles enough that odd things like that make sense to them. That progresses to kind of forgetting how to toilet, how to take care of yourself, how to do certain things. We're kind of at the phase now where she's still kind of feeding herself, although it's a struggle. It's more like you're going backwards like a toddler with a spoon and food that's easy to scoop up. But she's forgetting how to position her feet and get out of a chair and into a chair properly, or on and off the toilet, or in and out of the shower. Things like that are, you have to say, put your hand here. Getting in the car is the most complex task because there's a lot of different hand placement, where your foot goes first, how you move your hips, and those basic things are memories that are being lost.
Okay.